Hello and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
We are coming to you from the past.
You are the time travelers here.
I see Weston called Eat Daylight Savings time traveling without consent yesterday,
Oh,
and I thought that was great.
that's a thing. Yeah.
Anyway, we're recording this really well in advance. So we're not doing this in real time for you guys, if that makes sense, where we're not like we're still in Egypt.
Yeah. The fact is right now, as this is coming out, we're either jet lagged or are still in Egypt. Oh no, we
Mm-hmm.
are still in Egypt. Right now
Mm-hmm.
we are actually in Luxor. It is the
Mm-hmm.
19th. And
Yep.
we are observing the equinox. But here in this podcast episode with you in your time, we
Mm-hmm.
are talking about the upcoming eclipse, lunar eclipse
Yes.
happening in Libra on the 25th.
Yes, we are. So this is our kickoff to eclipse season.
Da-da-da.
You know that we have mixed feelings about eclipses.
I
And I
appreciate
think,
them.
yeah, I think everybody has mixed feelings about the eclipses. Because on the one hand, they're fucking cool. Like they're
Mhm.
so cool. The fact that we have the same relative magnitude of both the sun and the moon to make eclipses possible is just fucking insane. Like it's so
Nobody has
cool.
that. Nobody else has that in the galaxy. It's just
Mhm.
us.
It's
It's
just
really
us.
cool, or at least in the solar system.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's just us. That's it. And like the it's one of those things that's like it shouldn't happen, but it did. Like it's
But
a
it's not a
lucky
forever
thing.
thing either, because the moon is getting
Hmm.
slowly and slowly further and further away. So we only have this apparent magnitude for whatever era of time we do. And that's
Yeah.
really cool.
That's like for our lifetime, for sure. We'll have
Yeah.
it
Oh,
for
yeah.
our
Yeah.
lifetime.
Don't worry. The moon is not going anywhere anytime fast unless some kind of something happens, but
Space
not
nukes.
foreseeable. I was gonna say, I was watching the TV show The Magicians.
Mhm.
Something happens to the moon in that one. Any sci-fi show will typically have something happen to the moon. This is not
Right.
a sci-fi show. This is reality show. So.
Yeah. But so just take a moment. Like we get to marvel at the fact that we have apparent magnitude. It's wild. It is
Mhm.
so wild and so beautifully unique. And it's something that ties us to all of our ancestors and all of the people that came on planet before got to witness this same event. And
Mhm.
that's incredible. So just to honor that, because there were a lot of things that weren't witnessable, like they were live throughable, but not witnessable by our ancestors. But this is one that we didn't need telescopes for this. Like we would get to witness this as a human species twice a year, and that's really neat. So just one of those things that I think is beautiful and cool, and yeah, it's amazing. And though on an astrological and energetic sense, eclipses aren't always a walk in the park.
Yeah. So, and I will say this so I actually say this in my little newsletter I write. It's so funny to me as an astrological magician who then joined a sort of lineage of folk magic practitioners after having practiced on my own for decades.
Mhm.
I wanted something that could help me validate and verify my sources and make sure I was doing things and help me grow. So I joined a lineage from that perspective to connect more with my own heritage when it comes to folk magic, and nobody knew about eclipses. So I'd be in this email link of people being like, "There's a full moon happening this weekend, and I'm going to do this magic work," and I'm like, "Don't do it." What are you doing? Please try to avoid this one. It's an eclipse. It may not work the way you want it to. And then you go into the astrological magician realm, and it's a common, like, maybe we don't do that kind of thing. Like, again, in the previous episode, I read from the astrological magic grimoire Picatrix saying, hey, this causes destruction and it can be good and it can be bad. But like,
Mhm.
that's not for us in the composite world to say. One of the things Picatrix says is basically the sun and the moon are doing stuff. And though they are incorruptible, what they are doing and what their aspects do destroys and recreates what's below them. And that is called the composite world. Imagine everything that's made up of elements being the composite
Mhm.
world. That's us. Um, so, like, if you're made up of elements, maybe take a step back at this time and observe things being recreated for you. Let the directors set the stage, let the producers set the tone, and then you, the actor, take the props you are given and go for it once you understand the assignment. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of my thing. You will find astrological magicians who are like, I do eclipse magic because it's so powerful and catalytic and blah, blah, blah. It could be. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
the type to mess with people's lives or my own that way. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not super risk averse all the time, but I am that risk averse.
I will say I always do something on the eclipses. It is not usually something where I'm trying in any way to make the eclipse energy work for me or be controlled. It is something to do with observing. It is usually something to do with letting the results of the eclipse play out in my life. It is sometimes me being like, these are my dreams for right now. And I'd really love to share my dreams with this eclipse energy just to be like, hey, you're doing stuff, I'm doing stuff. This is just what's going on. Um, so it is a healthy, respected of the event magic, in my opinion, of what I always try to do. So it's just kind of witnessing and being a person that gets to experience an eclipse. And trying to honor that space. What I will also kind of make it akin to, and I've felt this about eclipses for a while, especially the most recent ones, to be totally honest, because the most recent ones, on a personal level, have been an adventure.
Mhm.
Um, and just really emotional in those types of things. When one does an hallucinogenic journey, specifically using fungi, specifically using mushrooms, um, it is a common knowledge amongst those who have done it many times, that
I hope you guys are watching because the face I just got to witness should not just be for me.
that you get the trip that you need, not the trip that you want.
Mhm.
Which is to say, you can have the best intentions, you can plan out everything that you're going to do, you can be all sorts of cozy and comfortable in your house or out in the woods, whatever. And your trip doesn't care. Um, you will have the experience that you need. And sometimes that's just fun and frolicking, and you spend the entire time cracking up and enjoying. And sometimes that is you cry and that is life altering and very, very deep stuff coming to the surface. Sometimes it's really deep bonding connection with the people that you're with. Sometimes it's we're all going to go off on our own, please don't talk to us. Like, it's what you get, the experience you need, not the experience you want. And that's how the eclipse energy has presented, especially the last couple years. It's very akin to that, where you come into it and you're getting the things that you need, but if you're trying to be like, I want this out of the eclipse, good luck. It doesn't care what you
It's not a
want.
vending machine,
Hmm. Yeah.
unfortunately. There are other opportunities for that. You can do
Hmm.
many things where you're like, "I would like this from this available energy, please." So you go to the vending machine that does chocolate bars, and you're like, "I want this flavor of chocolate bar or this specialty of chocolate bar." That's totally doable with astrological magic and folk magic and many other intentional works. With the
Yep.
eclipse is like, "This is what you need. This is what you're getting." And then it realigns you, and sometimes that can be jarring, but I
Hmm.
do truly believe in my own idealistic world that it is aligning you, it's getting you back on track, and so
Hmm.
that can feel jarring depending on where it is for you. If it's angular for you or if it's in a prominent place in your chart, then yeah, you'll notice. It's calling
Yeah.
you out. And again, for the good or the challenging, that you can get both. There's the opportunity for both. Especially with this one, it is a Venus ruled eclipse of the moon with Venus in her exaltation moving away from both malefics who are co-present with her, but at least she's separating from them. So there's something to be said for that as compared to the last Venus ruled eclipse where she was in her fall, and
Hmm.
it wasn't my favorite thing. It was something that happened in October, and if you can think about other things that happened in October, you can probably figure out why it wasn't my favorite thing and still isn't.
Hmm.
But it
Yep.
is giving me some hope for,
Mhm.
period of change with the last eclipse as this one gets its own agenda rolling.
Yeah. Stand in your power, girl. Go Venus.
I know.
You just you
They
Venus it
keep
up.
coming for you, but you keep standing back up. You've got this. This is America Ferrera and Barbie Venus. That's what this
Uh-huh.
is.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's good. What else was I watching the other day that had a very similar to America Ferrera speech? Oh, dang it. I forget. I wanted to mention, be like, oh, this is another great. Nah, it's gone. No idea. But
Come back.
if it comes back, I'll share. But no, I appreciate that. And it's nice to have the same but different energy when it comes to that journey from October to now, as far as the eclipse goes. And I will say, don't be afraid. And I really, people get freaked out when we talk about stuff like this. Please don't. It's not the
You're meant
boogeyman.
to
And just
explore.
because we're saying, you little human, please don't go and do magic with energy that you don't fully understand, doesn't mean you have to be afraid of this energy. You don't, and you shouldn't be. You really, really shouldn't be.
If anything, it is a reminder that you are a part of the greater workings of the cosmos, not
Hmm.
necessarily that you run the cosmos. So
Yeah.
this is something where you realize you are a participant of nature and that nature is working with you and that you are a piece of that rather than trying to wield nature and bend it to your will. Those are the people that I think will frustrate themselves the most.
Hmm. I agree. And with that notion too, instead of doing magic like manifesting or magic like shedding, both of those things are magical things. They're energy worky things. You can talk to your guides. You can do a guided meditation where you connect with them. You can ask deities. Like if you want to hang out with us in Deity Academy, you'll get a
Yeah.
lot of experience doing that over the next 4 months. But you can ask certain deities to do some like deity work type stuff where you talk to them or redo your altar to like make the space for the deities for spring, for this new season we're entering into. I mean, there's tons of stuff you can very easily do that is not doing magic, but still helps you feel spiritual and connected the way that our ancestors felt spiritual connected. There are temples and structures and spaces built all over the world that honor equinox and honor solstice and honor all of these things. You can use this energy, this solstice or this eclipse. I meant not solstice. You get what I'm saying. Eclipse energy.
This
You can use this
astrological event
eclipse.
or
Yes,
astronomical.
thank you. You can use it to create space without doing magic work
Mhm.
necessarily. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, you can be
Hmm.
instead of do.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the other spiritual things will be being. They'll be being during this eclipse. Uh, I'm honestly going to be paying very close attention to the spiritual energies during this eclipse.
Mhm.
What are the fairies doing? Is there ghost stuff? Our awards doing things like that? Like it, very significant. Going to be paying attention to that.
Yeah, and it's as an astrologer studying these things as I do, I've been looking into a lot of source texts about eclipses lately to just really drill into them and be like, am I getting this right? Am I looking at it as fully as I should? And one of the things I'm coming to understand is the eclipse as a transit for us or for an individual is one thing. There's another thing to be said about the eclipse as an astronomical or astrological event with its
Hmm.
own initiation that it begins. And so
Hmm.
there's this whole thing in particularly Ptolemy. That actually, the fun fact here is while you may notice things happening on the eclipse that are a hallmark for what that eclipse is doing, or that by transit really do affect you because the eclipse is transiting a part of your chart, it also is in and of itself its own omenological event. And according to Ptolemy, not necessarily starting the day of the eclipse itself.
Hmm.
It's really interesting to me. The position and the visibility of the eclipse make all the difference as to when we will see the events of that eclipse begin, when we will see them sort of increase in their potency, and then also decrease when we will see them subside. Um, for instance, Venus is having her heliacal set around the solar eclipse in April. And that is actually going to be an indicator of the subsiding of the events that began with the solar eclipse in Libra last October. So while we have this new solar eclipse beginning or setting its tone that day, another one is coming to a close because of the way the timing works. And of course, with a lunar eclipse, like we're talking about today, this lunar eclipse is in Libra, which means that it has
Hmm.
more of an effect on people rather than leadership. And
Hmm.
also that we're going to study the time of it in a periods of months rather than years, whereas the solar eclipse would have talked about years a little bit more.
Hmm.
And so I actually did research. This eclipse from beginning to end is going to be about 4 hours and 39 minutes long. That's about 4.6 hours, which would
Mhm.
translate to 4.6 months. But because, at least when you cast the chart for Washington, D.C., and check out the previous episode for the reason behind my tone on this, when you cast the chart for Washington, D.C., the moon is in the 10th house. And so that means that we're actually going to be waiting for the second period of 4 months in the year from the eclipse
Mhm.
before we actually see it kick off. And because the moon is where it is, we are also going to be waiting for the middle third of that period for the intensification to be noticeable. And we also have to pay attention to what Venus is doing because she's the ruler of the eclipse. So when she goes through phase changes or retrogrades, which she won't in that period of time, woohoo, um, that will also give us notable events for the eclipse. So I did the math, and if I did the math right, we're going to be seeing the beginning of this sometime in August with the intensification in the September-October period, which is another set of eclipses. Ironically, it doesn't have to work out that way, but it really
Mhm.
is time around.
So with that notion too, as far as also, will you give, before I ask that question, will you
Mhm.
give some like exact stats for people to understand like what date the eclipse is, times, can we see it, anything like that? Do
Yeah,
we know?
so this eclipse in Libra takes place on the 25th of March. And the way it is on my chart for where it perfects is going to be about 3 a.m. where I am. You want to look at when the moon and the sun are exactly opposite each other at 5 degrees and 7 minutes of Libra for the moon. So look for the exact full moon coming on March 25th, or Google when is the lunar eclipse on March 25th going to happen for me for your time zone. But it should be able to just say, like, for you, that would be like midnight.
Yeah.
So that's what the chart says for here. So I would have to get up pretty early in the morning, go outside, and almost directly above me, I would see the eclipsed moon. And it makes sense, right? Because it's a full moon. So it's going to happen at night because the moon and the sun are opposite each other. So we're going
Mhm.
to see the sun down while the moon is full.
Yeah. I'm trying to see what the path of it is too.
Yeah.
Is it over us? I don't think it's over us.
Um, so astrologically, if it's in the top half of the chart, it's visible. But so from here, it should be. But I think
I'm
you're
trying
right.
to just see
Um,
exactly. Oh no, it looks like we can see it.
yeah, because if it's
Yeah,
above
it
the
is like
horizon, it's visible.
solidly over the US.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you can see this one, which it shows up as a red moon.
Yeah, yeah, and this one is penumbral, which means a partial lunar
Mhm.
eclipse, which does have astrological significance as well. The more complete the eclipse, the more like potent the effects, kind of thinking about it as like a volume dial. So because this is only partial, it's not as loud. We're not feeling as much bass from this one. So
Yeah.
it's another one where it's like whatever's going on, it's not as intense as it could be, award. But also it is something that we will start to see, likely, if I got my math right, sometime around August, and then the intensification will actually be later
Yeah.
in that.
But we will be, well, we'll be back from Egypt
We'll be
for
back
then.
from Egypt by the time the eclipse occurs, because it's the
Yeah.
Monday after we get back. By the
Yeah.
time the significations start showing up, we'll have just gotten back from Japan.
Correct. Correct. I was just thinking like to watch the eclipse. I'm like, but we won't be able to see it because we'll be, actually, we might be back. So
Mhm.
yeah, I might be back. You will definitely be back.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
have to hope for a lack of clouds.
Yes. Right.
Only thing that gets in my way is clouds.
I love lunar eclipses. They make me happy. I'm a very moon person though.
I was
So
born at night, and I have the moon
I
in my first
literally have
house.
a red moon tattooed on my back. I love lunar eclipses. Well, it's technically half a red moon, but that's
Mhm.
because I'm a Gemini.
Yeah.
This half of my body's black and white tattoos, and that half of my body's colored tattoos. So the red moon is black and white on half of it because it has to match my vibe.
Which is so cool.
Thank you. But anyway, I love lunar eclipse energy. I'm like, oh, can I see the red moon? I'm like, actually, I'll be in Italy probably.
Yeah.
I'll be back in time for that. So it's okay. I guess that's a fair exchange.
Yeah.
We have a layover in Italy. That's why, in case
Mhm.
anyone's wondering.
Yeah, the actual trip where we'll be together in Italy is a month after that, or
Yeah.
2 months
For
after
your
that.
birthday.
For my birthday.
Yeah.
You get to be there with
Yeah.
me as as Mercury takes over as my perfected Time Lord. God help me. But yeah,
It's gonna be fun.
it'll be a great year.
It's gonna be fun. It'll be good. It'll be really, really good.
Hey, it's activating my midheaven. I have hopes. I have hopes.
That's awesome. See, those are good things.
Yeah.
The other thing I would always recommend doing during an eclipse is anything like artistic.
Mhm.
Is always really nice because that is the human expression, especially with a lunar eclipse that is very personal to people and less personal to society. Um, it's always lovely to do the people thing, and the people thing is art. Whatever type of art, even if it's just singing for a little while, amazing. Go ahead and sing while you wash the dishes. If it's drawing, if it's writing, if it's dancing, if it's playing music, like whatever it is that helps you feel a little artistic, a little bit like you're creating something, you're making something, you're changing something. That is the human expression. That is what art is. Not AI, but just our human expression. And expressing that is being present. It is allowing the eclipse to be in the driver's seat, which is what it's demanding anyway. You don't get a choice. It's in the driver's seat. Sorry. But it's giving that kind of like consent of allowing as opposed to resistance, is to just be like, well, I'm human and I'm experiencing this. I was always going to experience this. So I'm going to embrace that human, that magical, that connective, that intuitive side of me. And that is what art does for us. So I always recommend that as well, especially with the lunar eclipse, solar eclipse as well, but especially with the lunar eclipse. It's very important. And it's one of those things that can be deeply activating.
Mhm. Agreed. Well said.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there any other astrology around this week that we need to pay attention to?
So along with the eclipse,
Hmm.
let me just pull up my little transity thing here to make sure. Because again, we're living in the future here. So I've got 3 weeks of transits in my head. I
Yeah.
have to make sure I'm looking at
Yeah,
the
no,
right
I
one.
know, pop quiz. But there's
Um,
like, 5
yeah,
days or 6 days from when this premieres, well, 4 days, I guess, from when this premieres
yeah,
to when the eclipse actually happens. So I'm
yeah.
like,
So
is
this is
there
going to
other
come out
astrology?
around the 21st. The 21st itself. So as you are hearing this, Venus is having her conjunction with Saturn. This is something that Venus being exalted, this is another thing I have hopes for. It's something I won't talk about in a public space, but I do have hopes for it. If you are someone who has worked more closely with me in one of the capacities that are available, you know what I'm thinking about with Venus.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to work with me in closer capacities, it's all through the Modern School of Ancient Wisdom. I think some of the stuff is still in there. Videos are available, that kind of stuff. But I have hopes. Mars will be moving into Pisces on the 22nd. So now Venus has both malefics with her.
Hmm.
And so not great, but again, she's pulling ahead of them. They are both slower than she is. So they are kind of like the roommates who are noisy, even though she's having a spa day in one
Hmm.
room. So they're in a different room. They're being noisy about it, and she doesn't really want them there, but she can ignore them as long as she has her noise canceling headphones. Um, and then on the 24th, she actually does perfect a sextile with Jupiter, both benefics, seeing each other, which is nice, a nice refreshing thing. And she actually will at this point have this really great mutual reception with Jupiter, because Jupiter rules Pisces. Venus rules Taurus, and they're having an aspect. They see each other. This is the ideal kind of mutual reception that we could get from them. So that's something I'm really excited about. High hopes again. Then, of course, we hit the 25th, which is where the eclipse is. And then following that, the 28th, Venus will form a sextile next with Uranus, which might bring some interesting, surprising changes to relationships or to
Hmm.
your spiritual work. So, this is a really great time for aha moments and finding unexpected resources that help you grow your spirituality or the depth of your relationships.
Yeah. And motivation there too. I think it'll renew a lot of motivation for spiritual pursuits, because that's what I've been seeing around this energy too. It's like people all of a sudden are like, oh, yeah, I like doing these things. I'm going to do them.
Yeah.
Or be thrust into the activation that is, hey, surprise, you're now doing more spiritual work. It's
Yep.
not optional. So kind of both and, which is good. I mean, honestly, I think all of us need to do a little bit more of that in some different ways, or at least be aware of it in some different ways, since it is becoming more part of every day. for even people who are not super connected. Everyone listening, you guys are connected. You have at least this bridge, which is super powerful. So remind yourself of that. But I do think it's going to have some kind of motivating elements to it as far as spiritual work goes, which I'm excited about personally.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to share with you all of our experiences that we have in Egypt. Again, we're still in the past of that, but I'm sure it's amazing and wonderful, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Where we are, they haven't happened yet. Where you are, they're happening now. And next week or the week after, we'll be able to share them with you.
Yeah. So, but we're looking forward to it. It's going to be really, really cool and really expansive. I just want to note too, if you're like, man, I really want to go on a trip with them, we do still have spaces available for Japan. And we actually have a discount code for that too. What is the code? I don't know it off the
You
top
know
of my
what?
head.
For the code, because there's only a couple codes left and we want to make sure
Hmm.
we're not setting people up for disappointment, email us at
Yeah.
forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com.
It's a good idea.
And let us know that you would like the code and we will let you have that code. It's just a lot easier for you and we do not mind receiving that message.
Yeah. But it gives you a couple $100 off
Mhm.
um the Japan trip. So we would love, love, love to have you come with us. And it's going to be so expansive. We're going to do like higher self work, soul work.
Connecting to
It's going to
nature.
be a really soul nature earthy trip.
Plus, you're going to get to learn how to make sushi.
Yeah. And you get to have a sacred tea ceremony. There gets to be a spring. You get to pick which spring of water to help you manifest a certain thing in your life that you get to drink from at one of these shrines. Like, there's cool stuff.
Yeah.
There's very cool stuff that we're doing. So anyway, we would love to have you come with us there if you feel aligned with travel. There, like I said, there's a couple spots that left that we would love to have you in.
Mhm.
The other thing is Deity Academy. So I don't 100% know if it's going to be full or not by the time this episode premieres, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
Mhm.
If you're part of Deity Academy, hopefully you're getting real hyped because we are getting very much closer to starting Deity Academy. It starts in April. And basically it's a 4-month long channeling experience where you're going to learn about different pantheons, a new pantheon each of the 4 months, and techniques for channeling in and doing deity work with connecting with deities, for understanding deity messages, as well as a community to bounce those deity messages off of, to share your experiences with, which is the most beneficial thing. Spirituality is not supposed to be an alone thing. Like, it's a personal thing, but it's not an alone thing. You need to have community. The most expansive times I've ever had spiritually have been when community is around, that I can be weird and share all this stuff with and grow with, etc.
So for my master's in divinity, I'm reading the history of, the good news, which is Christianity and how it grew. And even when the monks first went into the desert to find isolation from how
Hmm.
Christianity was going at that time, they ended up forming community.
Yeah.
So all the monks ended up in the same place. And then monasteries, thanks to a lot of movements in Ireland, formed a communal focus. Like there was this whole thing of this is how it should be, and there should be community and there should be support and that kind of stuff. So that spiritual contemplation that even goes along with being a monk of
Mhm.
various faiths and belief systems, there is that's connection that goes along with it to support your
Yeah.
point.
And honestly, community this year is so important, especially spiritual community. Like, any way you can find it, whether it's through one of our Patreons, whether you come to Sacred Spaces, which more info on the next Sacred Spaces event coming soon, whether you join Deity Academy, whether you come with us on one of our trips, or whether you just go and find spiritual community by yourself. Like, whatever it is, we can't stress enough how important it is, especially right now, especially if you want to develop your psychic abilities. The number one recommendation I can give you truly is go find people to develop them with. Because if the collaboration, the validation that comes between talking to people, the expansion, the activation on a cellular level that happens between two people that are communicating is wild.
And the access to that right now is frankly
Hmm.
a privilege. I spent
Yeah.
my whole childhood looking desperately for mentorship and could
Yeah.
never really find it until after my Saturn return. So I was 30 by the time I found a mentor. And by that point, it was like, yep, all the stuff you figured out yourself, correct. And I was like, great, glad to know that. Love the affirmation here, but also would have learned it so much faster. And that's what we really want to offer when we do offer ways to work with us is you don't have to start from the bottom. You can get the
Mhm.
information with support, with accommodation for your learning, and with community and friends, so you don't feel so insecure or blocked or unhappy or doubtful throughout the journey. These are all big things that come up as blocks for people who are doing their spiritual work, and you can have workarounds for that. You can have the support you need to thrive. We know what it's like not to have those things, so we create really great spaces for them to exist. I'm
Mhm.
very proud
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
that.
I'm so proud of it too. It lights up my whole heart so strongly and deeply. It's such a big deal. And you get to have a channeling experience with us. So each month we're going to have like an hour and a half long channeling call where Krista and I are going to be channeling in deities from that pantheon. We'll do some education stuff and then we'll be channeling stuff in. And then we might end up pulling cards to do with that pantheon. We might end up turning on the Phasma box. You can actually hear the deities talk through the Phasma box software. I mean, there's a million different things that we can do in those calls. Krista and I channel gods and goddesses constantly. We're doing it like literally all the time. Like two of my guides, I guess, are deities. So we're going to dive into that. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can help you connect through that call as well. And then you can also get the activation of truly seeing it in real time, which is not something we typically share all that often, is our process and how it looks when we're channeling deities and the conversations we have and how our deities bounce off of each other. Like we don't usually show that. So you get to kind of have that window as well in Deity Academy. So we'd love to have you in there. All that's to say, we would love to have you in that space. It's going to be really cool. And we're incredibly excited about it. So please come hang out with us. And even if you don't want to hang out with us, please find a way to find some community because it's so necessary. So deeply necessary. Cool. Well, wonderful. Hello from the past. Hope the future's lovely. We're excited. We are excited to kind of get back in the swing of things too. Because we're constantly living like a month or two ahead of our time. So we're excited to get kind of back into the swing of things too and kind of update you on all the stuff that happened in Egypt. And then looking, a week ahead or so, we have the solar eclipse to talk about, which is going to be a even bigger event
Mhm.
coming up. Which you'll be able to see if you're in the eastern half or the northeastern half of the United States specifically. Which I'm not, but you are, and that will be cool.
I'm going to be obsessively capturing responsibly and safely as much as I can of this. We even have filters for our phone cameras. So
Nice.
excited.
It's going to be awesome. Anyway, we hope that you enjoy this eclipse energy, you embrace it, and that you take it all and you go make some
Make some
magic.
magic.
That one was a little off, I think, but we're
Just
good. We're
gonna
good.
smile through it.